Okay, so these 4 steps, you need to have them memorized. This was the green folder is what you had your Ed puzzle over. That was our first one we did. If you need to refer back to it to refresh in your memory, please take the time to do so. I'm just going to go over a couple in each section. This packet is due tomorrow. You can take the time to check your answers tonight on Teams. No work, no credit. All right, so they want you to write the equation here. Sorry. Oh, I think I disconnected it. Sorry. Hold on. All right, so they want you to have the equation in slope-intercept form. So you have to know that that has to look as y equals mx plus b. That's the end result. There's some facts that you have to follow and apply. So on number 1, they want the equation to pass through the point 46. That represents your x1 and your y1. They want it to be parallel. What did you know about parallel? Yep, same slope. Okay. And then to the graph y equals 2/3 x. So in this equation, what is the slope? Yep, so I'm just going to circle it. This is what I always do. So my m equals 2/3. So I'm going to use that in my step 3, which is point slope form. Okay, so point slope form looks like this: y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. I'm not saying you have to write the form. I'm checking that you can plug it in. So if you understand how to use this form, you can go straight to plugging it in, because that's step 3, plug into point slope form. So hopefully you see here your 6 here represents your y1, your 4 represents your x1, so that's going to be inside the parentheses, and your 2/3 is your m, so that's in front of the parentheses. Did anyone write the equation in point slope form? Very good. 2/3 parentheses x minus 4. Okay, so that's the first thing I'm going to check. Then step 4 says to solve for y, because you want it in slope-intercept form. So how are we going to solve for y? All right, let's distribute. Now, I know I already have people. I'm going to put that in black. I already had some students ask me about distributing or multiplying a fraction. If you struggle with that, your calculator can help you, okay? So when I distribute, you're going to end up just rewriting y minus 6, but this now becomes 2/3 x minus 8/3. If you're not sure how that happened, let me go get your calculator in your hand. Let me clear this out. Get your calculator in your hand, because I cannot, moving forward, give you hints on keystrokes when you're taking your test. So who remembers how to get to the fraction box? Very good. Alpha y equals, enter it. We're going to take the fraction 2/3, so put the 2 at the top of the box, arrow down, 3 in the bottom box, arrow to the right, and now times a -4. And there is our answer. So we can't have excuses about simplifying fractions or multiplying fractions or operations with fractions, because your calculator can help you with that. So when we, now solve for y, we have one more step. After we distribute, how am I going to isolate the y term here?
-6.
So close. It is +6. You got to do the opposite. So our y is going to equal 2/3 x. Who knows what happens when you add 6 to that -8/3? Very good. You have a calculator to do that for you. So it's going to be plus, your y-intercept can be a fraction, 10/3. And that's what we want in that form. So on number 2, same thing. It's passing through a point. They gave us a point. The -7 is your x1. Your -1 is your y1. But now we're talking about perpendicular. So what does that mean? Negative reciprocal. Very good. I'm just going to abbreviate that. Negative and the reciprocal. I'm going to abbreviate that. What does that mean to be a negative reciprocal? Yeah, you have to flip the number. So we're going to flip. I'm just going to say flip and then the number symbol and change sign. So in this equation, the graph of y equals 7x minus 5, the 7 is your slope. To do the perpendicular, remember upside and down t is perpendicular, the symbol for perpendicular. How would I get that number? What is the negative reciprocal of 7? Negative 1 over 7. So this is what I have to use to plug it in. And if you understand how to plug it in, go straight to it. I'm just going to plug in our numbers. So y minus y1. Well, my y1 is a negative, so you have to remember to do the opposite. So this is now going to be y plus 1 equals the negative 1/7, parentheses x plus 7. Now we need to solve for y. That's step 4, which requires us to distribute and add or subtract. So I want you to try. There's no more excuses to not being able to do fractions. I want you to try to distribute. You should end up with the negative 1 when you distribute the negative 1/7 times 7. And then to solve for y, you need to subtract 1 from both sides. And now I can isolate my y variable and get the equation y equals a negative 1/7x minus 2. Check your understanding. Okay. So there's going to be about 4 to 5 problems asking you to write an equation or pick the correct answer choice with the correct parallel or perpendicular equation. I want to talk about number 5 real quick. Okay. So go to the next page and look at 5. This is a test-like question. It's our same steps. Sorry. We have our 0.6 is our x1, negative 5 is our y1. We're still doing perpendicular. You understand that. But the graph of the equation of 3x minus y equals 3. So in this equation, do we know the slope? No. What? Yes, we have to subtract the 3x because it's not in slope-intercept form. So we can't just look at it and get the slope. So do the work. Minus 3x. That's the thing you're going to have to show that you recognize to solve it for y. When you do that, the x terms cancel. What are we going to write now? Pay attention to your signs. Yeah, negative y equals negative 3x plus 3. Okay, can we leave it like that? No, why not? You can't have that negative right there. So how do I get rid of this negative? -1. Divide everything by -1. So y equals now positive 3x minus 3. I can see the slope now. Our slope is 3, but we want the perpendicular. Very good. So we're using this slope in our point slope form with our points up here. So y, now it's going to be plus 5 equals the negative 1/3, parentheses x minus 6. I just went straight to step 3, which is plugging in. So now what should we do? All right, so let's do it. What? Was that? Okay. Okay. All right, so hopefully we wrote y plus 5 equals a negative 1/3 x plus 2. Yes. Then isolate the y, so we're going to subtract 5 on both sides. Our final equation, y equals a negative 1/3 x minus 3. Okay, so I circled 5 because that's a test-like question. And then as if you want to see an example of how a multiple choice type question is going to be, I would circle 7 and 8. Okay. So make sure you have those 4 steps for this section memorized, and then take the time to check your answer and work on Teams tonight, because I'm not doing those. That's it for this section. All right, I'm going to section 2. I'm just going to put the answers. Yeah. All right, so on this section, you need to refer to your blue notes because they have all the transformation rules on them. Okay. Basically, I've already stated you need to memorize the rule for each type. So anything that requires you to move down or up, right here. Oops, sorry. Anything moving down or up is talking about vertically shifting. So you need to know based on how the graph is moving or based on how I tell you, because on this section, there's some sections where I give you the rule, you have to describe what happened. There's another section where I describe what happened, you give me the rule. Okay, so this has to get memorized. Now, sometimes too, I think some of the questions I got so far, whereas understanding if I'm moving up or down, this is talking about a vertical shift. Okay, moving up or down is dealing with vertical shifting. If you're moving left or right, these two here, that's a horizontal shift. So it's just another way of describing the direction. Anything dealing with steeper means you have to multiply to the slope. Okay. If it gets steeper and the y-intercept changed, this is stating that you multiply to the whole function, excuse me. Okay. So notice that the A is outside the parentheses versus here, the B is inside. So this is B times the slope. Okay. If it's x plus c or x minus c here, these two require you to plug in for x. Okay. Right. The first two, you're just going to add or subtract to the function. All right, so make sure this gets memorized. I can't stress this enough. All right, so if we look at our first section here, they want you to describe the transformation that maps f of x to g sub x. So you got to look at the the f of x is your original. If you want to think of this f of x is the original, the g sub x is the new. So you want to look to see how it changed. So in the original one here, 2 represents the slope. In the new g sub x, now we have a 4. What did they do to this 2, the slope, to get to 4? Times 2. Okay. This is showing 2 times the slope to get that 4x. So that means my rule is showing times the slope. So if you look down here, oh, sorry. Anytime I times the slope right here, multiply the slope. Sorry, come down. Yeah, see right here? Multiply to the slope. I don't know why it's not staying. B times the slope, that's the way it should be written. Bx. Okay, so I'm just going to show you the example of the rule that it matches. This matches f of bx. Now, to show the transformation or to describe the transformation that maps to g sub x, I got g sub x by doing f of 2x. Because I did 2 times 2 to get the 4x. So obviously this, anytime I'm multiplying, it's getting steeper. What?
How'd you figure out that was
Because the 2 is what changed, and that's in front of x, and b is when it's in front of x. Like when I look at all the rules on this page, which rule deals with multiplication? It's only these 2 down here. It's steeper, so it had to be b times slope.
Oh, wait, because this is the B? Yes! Okay.
So if you look at 10, okay, we have f of x equals x. This is the original. And then g sub x changed to x plus 7. So which rule is dealing with adding?
Move left, C units.
No, because it's not in parentheses. This would be up 7. Because it's plus, this is up 7 units. So this is showing f of x plus b. Right? Because we're adding 7 to the x. So if I want to describe g sub x in terms of that my g sub x would have been f, whatever the function is, plus 7. Our function happened to be x right here. So they just substitute that x for the f of x, and then add 7 to it, and that's how they got this expression right there. You gotta have to kind of work backwards or think backwards. All right, so look at 11. How is the original changing to the new?
I really don't.
You're multiplying by 6, but do y'all see how we're multiplying everything by 6?
Yes.
So which rule does this match? Yes, a f of x. Very good. Okay. So g sub x, I'm going to do that in blue, is the rule 6 times the f of x. F of x was the 2x minus 3. So let's jump to 14 because this is kind of multi-step. F of x is 2x minus 5. G sub x is 2x minus 8.
Right.
Yes. It went from, if I look at this number right here, this negative 5 changed to a negative 8. To do that, I have to do minus 3. So I'm going down. Does that make sense? So this rule is taking that f of x and mining 3 from it. There's about 6.
How many percentages is that?
It's like 18, I think.
18?
Okay. Now, they want you to write a function g in terms of f. So you have to look at the keywords, guys. The graph of g is a horizontal That's important. Horizontal translation 2 units to the right. So anything moving, basically this is saying I'm move to the right 2. Okay, which rule deals with moving to the right? Minus C, that's the rule for moving to the right. So I'm going to apply that rule in terms of G. So to show that, my G sub x is F, whatever my F of x is, 2 units to the right, so minus 2.
Minus 2.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
All right, here we have a reflection on the y-axis of our graph F. So a lot of people had questions on this one in the other classes. Does anyone recognize, like, if you have a graph, right? Your basic parent function goes through the origin like that. It's an x. That's your basic parent function. If I was to reflect this line over the x, it would have to come down here. Does that make sense? We're reflecting. So now it's going to be decreasing. Does that make sense? Okay, so if it's decreasing, look at the slope, right? The slope is not going to be negative. This one is positive. So this has to be, your f of x is now negative x. Yeah, you're multiplying your x by the negative 1, basically by a negative 1. All right, what if I have the g is a shift down, okay, shift down. What rule is talking about shifting down? Yeah, f of x minus d. That's the rule talking about shifting down. So if I write the rule in terms of what we have here, 5 units, your f of x would be f of x minus 5. Okay. I mean, do you see how you take the keywords, find the rule that matches those, and then just apply it to that? Okay. All right, look at 19. A vertical stretch by a factor of 4, okay, the graph is steeper. Which rule deals with it being steeper? F of bx. Okay, so what would I write for this rule if it's a factor of 4? How would f of 4x? There we go, done. Okay. All right. Now let's look if I give you a graph. So you will have to graph, or I'm going to give you a graph and then you have to come up with the rule, or I'm going to give you the rule and you have to come up with the graph. So I would definitely circle 21 and 22. Okay. I'm telling you right now, anytime I give you something twice, pay attention to how I change it, because that's basically what I'm just going to do on a test. Is give you the same thing and change the numbers. So it's important you understand how to do the problem. All right. The linear parent function f is graphed on the grid. They want you to graph g sub x equals f of negative 4x. So you have to take what's given. What do you know so far? Huh? Okay, we have, I guess, a y-intercept of 0. Is that what you're referring to? This line is f of x. So do y'all know what that is? Slope of 1. Okay, so what would this be? What equation would this be? Is the slope of 1? Y equals x. Yeah, f of x equals x. Y equals x, so it's f of x equals x. So that's our original equation. The rule says right here, negative 4x. So what is that telling we're doing? It's going to be decreasing.
Multiplying by the
You're multiplying what?
-4.
Yeah, we're taking this -4 and we're multiplying to the slope that we had here. This slope was 1, right? What's a -4 times 1? -4. So this basically is the new equation. Can we graph this?
Yes.
Where do we start? At the origin. How would I do a slope of -4?
Down to the right line.
Down 4 to the right 1. Repeat that. Or you go up 4 to the left 1. Repeat that. And now we're just drawing a line through those points. So it did get steeper, but it's now negative. Like it's going down faster. Okay, it's a bigger slope. So try the next one. Okay, remember I said I want you to try to graph it. If you work smarter, not harder, if you know this rule means down 4, then all I have to do is take this, move it down 4 units. 1, 2, 3, 4. And your line is staying the same. It's still a slope of 1. Oops, that's crooked. I'm sorry. The line should be parallel. Whenever you shift up or down, left or right, the slope stays the same. The only time it changes is when you multiply. All right, so the last section you would be tested on is your inequalities, graphing specifically, okay? All right, so, oh shoot, did I do this right? Yeah. Which inequality is less than? You need to know them by heart. It is that one. Check it, see if you picked the right one.
Oh, I have no idea. I just was like,
Which inequality will you shade below the line?
less than with the line.
Yeah, less than with the line underneath it and just a less than.
Let's go, dude.
Which inequality is greater than or equal to? Yep, it should be pointing the other direction. Which inequalities have a dashed line? Yep, the ones without the line on the bottom. See, if you personalize it, put it in your own words, it'll stick. All right, which inequality will you shade above the line? Above. Anything that's greater than. Okay, got to be greater than.
Come on, he said.
All right, last question, last fact you need to know. Does a solution exist on a dashed line? No, it does not. Okay, so. All right, so to graph, I'm going to start with 30 because I think you have 29. When I checked your work yesterday, everyone was getting those correct. To graph this inequality, what needs to happen first?
Go down to negative.
Okay, but I'm going to start at 30.
Yeah.
Oh, we're on 30.
We're on 30.
I did do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Minus 2x times.
All right, let's write it. Guys, show and tell, all right? You show it, you tell it. If you start talking to yourself, it starts sticking. All right, so the 2x cancels. What are we writing now?
-5y.
Good job of seeing the sign. -5y greater than or equal to -2x plus 30. Now, divide everything by -5. Let's see if y'all remember what happens here. Yes, the sign flips. Y is less than or equal to 2/5 x minus 6. This is what we're graphing. So to graph it, we need to start at a -6. Put a point there. And then our slope is 2/5. Very good. Since it's 2/5, that means we're counting up to the right 5. So count up to. And I can't repeat that. I'm coming off the graph. So there's all we need is 2 lines. to graph it. All right, so I get my ruler. I need to get mine. It's way up here. And we're gonna line it up. Jason?
We're not going to do that.
Sorry. And we're gonna shade, well, first, what type of line is it gonna be?
Under.
No, line type.
Even equality.
Solid.
Below.
Solid line. Look at this right here. That's gonna be solid.
I'm just gonna go down.
And now we're gonna shade, yes, below. You can also, if you prefer, put a S. Very good. Put a S where the solution set would be. Okay. All right, go to the next one. Let's try 31. 31. All right, minus X should be the first step.
That's like joke. I have no idea where we are.
Okay, this is fine, guys, but anything plus 0 is just 0, so I don't really need that. Okay? You still get to the same answer. You should be dividing by -4. This is now less than or equal to. This should be 1/4 X. So we should be starting at the origin at 0, counting up 1 to the right 4. Or down 1 to the left 4. Again, we have a solid line.
21.
And we're shading where?
Hello.
Yep. Less than means, this symbol means we shade below. All right, I want you to write the equation on 33. Which inequality, I said equation, which inequality, right? Come up with the inequality that matches the graph on 33. Write it, write it, write it, write it. Y'all see where the shading is? Since it's above, y'all recognize that has to be that symbol. And it's also going to be a line underneath it because it's solid. So this should be y is greater than or equal to 1. 34. Circle 34. That's definitely test-like. So how would you go about getting to this solution? How'd you get C, Jason? Okay, that's not how we go. We don't guess.
What was that, right?
What did I say? What did I say? Try what? Try to find the y? Okay. Is that where you're starting?
I mean, like,
Oh, each answer choice? Okay. All right, so if you do minus 2x, this becomes 5y is greater than negative 2x minus 5. Then you have to divide by 5. Oops, I forgot my x. How can I use that?
you look at your Y.
All right, look at the y. This one says -1. Okay, that matches. And then you need to, what else? You gotta look at the slope. So in order to match the slope, you need 2 points. Here's another point on that dash line. And if I count between there, this is down -5. And to the right 2. So right off the bat, I can eliminate A and B.
Yeah.
Oh, right, not necessary. Go.
All right, I want you to try the last 2.
Yeah, I just.
All right, you should have picked G for 35 because that's the only one in the shaded. You don't pick on the dash line. And J for 36. All right, guys, so make sure you guys finish it. This is due tomorrow. And check teams for the key. All right, if you need to take your spirals, please.